All right. Looks like we're live. Looks like everything's working now. We got 5 people waiting on. Sorry, I was just, well, I don't guess I was late. I was almost late. But you know the drill. We're going to get the disclaimers out of the way. We'll jump into it. I don't even have any chats to respond to yet. We'll get there in a minute. So this is a weekly live broadcast. This is pretty much every Thursday evening, 7 o'clock Central. This is where I am. You can come here. You can ask your questions. You can just talk, whatever you want to talk about. Pretty much anything is open. I'll talk about just about anything you want to talk about. I don't care, religion, politics, all the taboo stuff you're not supposed to talk about in mixed company, because I believe we can have differences of opinions and still be friends. So the only things I ask is that we can have disagreements, we can have debates, be friendly, be polite, don't be family friendly, I should say. Don't start cussing at us. Don't start being hateful with anybody, calling anybody names, any of those kinds of things. We'll have to kick you out. There's no reason for that. So anyway, that's pretty much it. So like I said, everything is fair game. We got 11 people here. We only got one chat so far. I do my best, I should say, to respond to every chat that comes in during the live broadcast. But we've only got one so far. This is Jacob Wolf. He says, hey, all. Good to see you, Jacob. Thanks for jumping in there and at least giving me one chat to respond to so far. We'll probably have a few more as we go. There's a few more. The Micro Bro says, let's go. Jacob Wolf says, Chris, have you ever tried growing tobacco? If so, how'd it go? I got a friend that's going to try it. No, I've never grown tobacco. I've never done it. Don't know anything about growing tobacco. It's just never been one of those things I've thought about growing. So, no, I haven't ever done it. Sorry. I'm not sure I guess that's it. Don't know anything about tobacco. I mean, I know about tobacco, but not growing it. Katrina says hello, or says hi, actually. Hello to you. Good to see you. Thanks for joining us. Andy says, hey, everybody from Southwest Michigan, 31 and windy. It's about I think it was 41 here today, but windy. The wind sucks. So hang on just a second. Hang on a second. Sorry, I got family stuff hitting me up here. I got to respond to them every once in a while. Dawn says, going to get my headset, be listening for a little bit until I get back here. Okay, that works. Joe Sandy's here. Good to see you. Says hello to everybody. Desert Homestead says, what's up, Chris? Building my SR quail hutch while listening to SR. It's a great day. Well, awesome. Hopefully that goes well. Holy cow, we got chats coming in now. Got to not lose track. There we go. Joe Sandy says, we got an ice storm this morning. Yeah, that sucks. Ice storms do suck. I don't mind the snow so much. Don't like ice. That's, the ice storms, don't like those. Anyway, what I was saying about our weather, it was like 41 today, but windy. So it kind of felt a lot colder than it was. That's what the wind does. You guys know that. We are supposed to get some snow next week. It's supposed to be a little bit colder. We had a stretch of it was just beautiful the last couple of days. Well, not yesterday, but like Saturday, Sunday was nice. Monday, gorgeous. I mean, it was like 65 degrees, sunny. I mean, it was just beautiful. And then now we're back to winter time. But that's the way it always goes. Let's see. Shepherd Labrador says, hello from Central Texas. It's an early spring here. Well, I mean, early spring so far. It doesn't necessarily mean it'll stay that way. But in Texas, you got a better chance than we do here. I think everybody gets their hopes up about this time. Like I said, being in the 60s or a couple of days ago, everybody's like, all right, it's springtime. I'm like, no, it's still February. I mean, some of the biggest snows I remember are early March here. I mean, our average last frost date's not until mid-April. So we got a little while before we're out of the woods on that. Jacob says, I also have a friend wanting to buy rabbit poop for his cannabis plants. Apparently, it's really good for growing it. I told him to bring his own bags and he can borrow a shovel and scoop all he wants, LOL. Yeah, actually, rabbit manure is fantastic fertilizer for just about any kind of plant. It's a cold manure. You don't have to compost it first. You can throw it right on your garden, right on your plants, right in your house plants. If you're going to put it in your house plants, I'd probably bury it under the soil just a little bit so when you water it doesn't stink up. It's not terribly stinky anyway, but when it gets wet, it's worse than when it's dry. But yeah, it's a great fertilizer. Never grown cannabis either, so I don't know anything about growing that necessarily. Although it can't be that hard to grow, right? I mean, it's pretty easy, I would think. Andy Rabbit's here. Says hello. Hello to you. Good to see you. Let's see. Old BD1 says we actually got rain here in SoCal yesterday. Well, we had rain. It was like drizzly rain the last 2 days. It was kind of nasty out yesterday. Let's see. Katrina says expecting 5 to 8 inches of snow this weekend. True test for the outdoor rabbit hutch. Yeah, we're not expecting that much. I think I heard a 1/4 inch, and then I heard an inch, somewhere between that, and it really kind of depends. We may not get any at all. We don't know. But there is a wintry mix predicted for like Monday and Tuesday, and then Wednesday is when the snow is really going to hit. Micro Bro says, in a survival scenario, what crops or sources of good, I think food is what that's supposed to be, not good, would you focus on producing in a survival scenario? I don't, in a survival scenario, I don't know that I'd be focused on producing a whole lot. I'd probably be hunting and gathering more than producing, because I'm assuming a survival scenario would be like a situation where like things are very volatile. I mean, it takes a long time to grow stuff. You can grow enough for a whole year, really, it's not that hard necessarily if you're fairly stable. But if things are all volatile and crazy and you have to fight off people off your food crops and all that kind of stuff, yeah, I think I'd move more to a hunting and gathering kind of phase. There's a whole lot of things that probably grow in your own yard that you can actually eat and survive off of pretty well. All kinds of things from purslane to what's the little clover looking one? Sorrel. Sorrel's really good, actually. I like it quite a bit. There's a whole bunch of things. Uh-oh. My dog just freaked out and ran out the door. He's going after something. Hang on, I'm listening. Couple of barks. Sounds more like somebody walking down the road kind of bark. So anyway, there's a whole lot of things. Learn to forage, learn what you can forage in your area. And that's kind of the direction I'd probably go. Now, if we're talking about like, things are just kind of hard and you need to really produce a lot more of your own food, perennials are a great way to go. Also fast growing stuff, lots of lettuce, lots of, lettuce, greens, leafy greens, those kinds of things, radishes. Those are pretty quick to produce, and they produce a lot for very little space. Also, I'd still grow things like tomatoes and stuff like that because they're just so darn good, and it's good to have that around. I wouldn't venture away from getting away from the rabbits and the quail. I mean, especially the rabbits, because if you had to, you could forage them pretty easily, and still do pretty well with that. But I live in town, so I'm kind of limited on what I can and can't do. If I had a bunch of land out in the country, then there's all kinds of different animals that you could throw on that, but I can't really get away with much of that here. I don't have enough land, first of all, and I just can't get away with it. So I don't know if that answered your question or not. I hadn't thought too seriously about that. I'm not really too worried about survival scenarios, but that's kind of my off the top of my head kind of answer. We got Tony from Toronto. Good to see you. Let's see where we at. All Clean Exteriors says hello to everybody. Good to see you. Thanks for joining. Tony Brooks says, do you give your quail grit, and how do you store your eggs before incubation? Okay, I don't give my quail grit, but they do have a sandbox, so they'll use that as grit somewhat. They don't really need grit if you're feeding them like a commercial quail food, a game bird starter or ration or whatever, the crumble stuff. They don't really need grit for that. What they need grit for is if they were going to be eating other things besides that. So like if you're giving them lots of vegetable and lots of other insects and those kinds of things, and seeds and that kind of stuff, then they need grit. But if you have a sandbox, they're going to use the sandbox as the grit, so you don't really need to provide grit for them. It's okay. I don't provide any. Like I said, they have the sandbox, they can get it if they want it. As far as storing eggs before incubation, so really, if I'm going to be storing eggs up, for which I usually do, I'll store up for like a week, and then because you can store them up to about 7 days. Really, after about 7 days, your viability starts to drop a little bit. So I typically will store for about 5 to 6 days, and then I'll start incubating. I put them in egg cartons. I mist them down whenever I collect them with a Listerine water solution. It's just gold Listerine mixed with water, half and half. Mist them down with that. That kind of helps with bacterial control, so you don't have to worry about bacteria. Don't wash them. Just mist them down. That's it. I put them in a cooler, and I set a mason jar in there. I set the egg carton like this, and I put one of those ice packs from the freezer at the bottom of that cooler, so it just stays cool in there, but not super cold. Really, the ideal temperatures to kind of store at would be somewhere between about 40 degree, probably closer to 50 degrees and 70 degrees, somewhere in that range, but it's not really that critical. What you don't want them to do is get up too warm where they get up to like 90-ish degrees, because then they may start to develop, and then you're going to, run into issues with it. So anyway, I put them in that cooler. I put an ice pack in the bottom of the cooler. I change the ice pack out every day, and I move basically turn the egg carton around every day. So it's basically doing this every day, turning the eggs a little bit so they don't stick to one side or the other, if that makes sense. And that works fine for me. If you had like a wine cooler that you could bump up to like 50 degrees, that'd be perfect. You do want to kind of turn them, but by turning them, you can just, like I said, lean the carton up like this and just rotate it back and forth, and it's going to be fine. It'll do fine. Hopefully that answers the question there. Jacob says, I'd just be glad to have my hutches cleaned out with no effort on my part. LOL. I do use it, though, for when I plant grass seeds, helped grow the high traffic areas where it was getting muddy. Yeah, I need to grow some grass in some of those areas, too. I've got an area right next to my house where my rabbit hutch used to be, but it's kind of it's shaded pretty much all day, so it doesn't really grow any grass right there. When it rains, it becomes a muddy mess. So, yeah, I don't know. I may need to try to get some grass planted there and do the same thing. Hey, there's 340 Quail Farm from Central Florida checking in. Thank you for joining us tonight. Good to see you. Desert Homestead says rabbit poo is said to be 211 MPK. That you may be right on that. I don't know. I've looked it up before and I can't remember. But yeah, that's probably about right. Dead Possum says, hey, y'all. Good to see you. Thank you for joining. Jacob Wolf says, let's see, Chris, what's your favorite hardware store to get stuff from for property projects? You a Lowe's guy, Menards, Home Depot, etc.? It depends, really. I tend to lean more towards Lowe's than I do Home Depot. I don't know why. I just do. But usually I check prices. A lot of times I can get it cheaper at Tractor Supply. So I'll buy at Tractor Supply sometimes too. My favorite hardware store, but I don't typically buy hardware cloth there. But other stuff I do like is a local one. It's an Ace Hardware, but it's a local one, Hinkle's Ace Hardware. And I like them because they're super friendly people. Usually have pretty decent deals. They've got a huge plant selection, like gardening type stuff. I kind of like the store quite a bit. And it's just right down the road from my house. So I'll go there and buy a lot of stuff from them too. They're probably my favorite hardware store, but they don't necessarily carry everything I need. So sometimes if I have to go to the big hardware stores, it's usually Lowe's. We have a Lowe's, we have a Home Depot, we have a Menards. I've only been in Menards one time. I don't know. I haven't shopped there. It's fairly new. Hadn't been around that long. Maybe it's a great store. I really don't know. Haven't been in there that much. And it's all the way across town. So Lowe's is the closest, easiest. That's usually where I go. There's Warchild. Says, hey, bud. Hey, all. Good to see you. Thank you for joining. Katrina says, how many quail per square foot? I keep hearing 3, but that seems really tight. You can do it a lot of different ways. Conventional wisdom is probably like 1 bird per square foot, but you can pack them a lot denser than that. I've got about a 24 square foot cage. It's 3 foot wide by 8 foot long, I think. Yeah, roughly 24 square feet. And I've put, 30, 40 birds in there before, and it's really not as bad as you think. It's a little tight, but it's not as bad as you think. And what I find really is the birds tend to kind of all huddle together anyway. Like right now, I've got a dozen birds out there, 13-ish, I think, in that cage. And they're pretty much all just kind of together in this part of the cage or in that part of the cage for the most part. Usually I have 1 or 2 stragglers that are off here, but for the most part, they all can just kind of clump together anyway. So it's not really that big of a deal. Personally, for my breeders, when it comes to growing out birds, you can fit a ton in there. I'll do 60 in that hutch sometimes because they're really only getting crowded for like the last week and a half, 2 weeks, and then you're processing anyway. But for breeders, I do like to kind of give them a little bit more room just because it just makes me feel better about it. I don't think it bothers the birds much. And I typically go with no more than about 1 per square foot at that. Hopefully that kind of answers that for you. I know it's a little convoluted, kind of blah, 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 but hopefully kind of gives you an idea. Jimbo Slice says, I've been trying to breed those rabbits over the last few weeks, but she still will not lift to let him breed. Any tips? Yeah, that's a common issue you can run into. Does not wanting to, sorry, I got distracted by another comment. Does not wanting to lift for the buck. It's a really common thing. There's a couple of things you can try to do, have limited success with them myself. One of the biggest things is just keep trying over and over and over again. If you don't have lights on your hutches, go ahead and put some lights on it and see if that will get her in the mood. Sometimes increasing the amount of daylight will help kind of spur the breeding behavior. Also, there's a lot of people that just swear by putting her in a car, in a pet carrier, stick her in your car, drive her around the block a few times, and then throw her in with the buck. And that seems to work a lot of the time. I don't know why it would. It makes no sense to me, but that is a common thing that a lot of people will speak to and say that it just does wonders. How old is your doe, too, would be my question. Do you know how old she is? Because you want to make sure that she's at least 6 months or not, if not older, and about 80% of what her adult weight would be. So if she was going to be a 10-pound rabbit at adult weight, you want to wait till she's at least 6 months old and about 8 pounds. If you're trying to breed when she's a little bit smaller than that, that may be part of the problem. Other than that, my best suggestion is, get another rabbit, because it's something to have a rabbit that will breed. Not all rabbits are always easy to breed. Now, chances are, though, once you get her to breed the first time, it'll be a little bit easier going forward, hopefully. I don't know if that helps much. Hopefully it does. Warchild says, did you figure out what mystery happened in your yard, or are you being haunted? No, I haven't figured it out yet, but haven't had any more issues. So I've gone probably about a week and a half, well, about 2 weeks at least, with really nothing other than what I said in the video about the rabbit, looked like rabbit manure, rabbit droppings on the feed bucket, the feed tote that I have out there to store my feed in. Other than that, which could have been a lot of different things. It may not have been anybody messing with anything. Other than that, though, I haven't had any issues in 2 weeks. So I'm just kind of chalking it up to who knows. Maybe it was some kid came by and just wanted to check things out a couple days. I don't know exactly. Jacob Wolf says to Jimbo, persistence is key. Also, car ride works wonders sometimes. Yep, I've heard that plenty of times. There's got to be something to it. I've tried it with a doe that I had that was really stubborn. It didn't really work with that doe. Eventually she did lift, but it was just a matter of persistence. Try morning, try night, try the next morning, try the next night, try the next morning, try the next night, give her a break maybe for a day, and then try again, try again, try again, try again. I mean, that's really about all you can do, honestly. Like I said, sticking some light on the cage, though, may help. If you can increase the daylight to, 16 hours a day of light or something like that, that may help get her in the mood a little bit. I've also heard, and I haven't tried this out myself because I haven't had to resort to it, but I've also heard swapping the cage, put her in the buck's cage, but take the buck and put him in her cage for a while, move him back for a day, and then put her in with the buck. I don't know why that would work exactly, other than it just lets her get his smell, get used to it, and maybe she's a little bit calmer, a little bit more likely to go ahead and lift for him whenever you do put her in to breed. That's something else you might be able to try. I don't know if it's going to work, but it's worth a shot just to see if it does. So hopefully that helps anyway. Katrina said that helps a lot. Thanks. Well, you're absolutely welcome. Glad I could help. Mike says, I hope you're all having a great night. We just picked up 2 goats as pets and weed eaters, thinking about naming them John and Deer. Also, it's confirmed we are having our first litter of pups in 30 days. Well, awesome. Sounds like things are busy there. So good luck with the goats eating the weeds. I've never found them to be that great at doing that. They tend to like more brushy, woody kind of stuff. If those are the kinds of weeds you're talking about, then that would work. But I've never found them very good at eating grass and regular weeds and that kind of stuff. But who knows? Maybe they'll be different. 340 Quail Farm says, how many rabbits would be a good starting point for a small family being raised for meat? Also, limited cage space in the backyard. Well, honestly, if you get 2 does and a buck, you're going to have a pretty decent amount of performance out of that with a very small area. So you can breed the does fairly heavily and get pretty good production out of that. Basically, breed a doe. It's going to be 30 days before she has her babies. When those babies are about 2 to 3 weeks old, you can rebreed her. You move the babies off her at 6 weeks. It gives you about 2 weeks before she has babies again. And if you get good, New Zealand whites or something like that, good meat rabbits, those rabbits are going to be ready to process at 8 weeks old. So you can keep a pretty good rotation going with just 2 does and 1 buck. Really kind of depends on how many you want, though. I mean, if you want to get more than that, go for more than that. But you don't really need, especially if you have a fairly easy access to get rabbits, you only need 1 buck for a couple of does, assuming you're not going to breed them all. Even if you were going to breed them all the same day or within a day or 2 of each other, 1 buck could serve probably 4 or 5 does pretty easily if you're going to be breeding them all within real close succession to each other. Verna is here, says, hey, Chris. Good to see you, Verna. Thanks for joining us tonight. Hopefully you're doing all right. Mike says, also, we're very grateful we won a church raffle. A $10 ticket won us a new chest freezer. Well, awesome. New chest freezer for $10. You can't beat that. Congratulations. I've been telling people, I said, man, I should be playing the lottery or something because I've had a little bit of stroke of good luck. I had to get some work done on my truck. It wasn't anything real serious, but it was something that was going to needed to be done eventually. So I was like, well, just go ahead and do it now. Get it done. It was the crossbars underneath basically had cracks in them, hairline cracks. I could have gone a little bit longer, but eventually it was going to need to be done. So I just did it. They quoted me like $700 to do it. And then whenever I actually had it done, it was only $500. It was $200 cheaper than what they quoted me it was going to be, which was good. And then I got some mail from the hospital and came in an envelope, looked like it was a bill. I thought, what am I charged for now? And opened it up, and apparently I'd overpaid for something. It was a check for $200. So I've been pretty lucky lately too. Jessica says, how do you keep from burning out? That's a good question. Sorry, I got distracted again. That's a good question. I'm not sure you mean like burning out on the animals and stuff like that. I mean, I go through phases where, I'm a little bit kind of like just do the bare minimum, get by, and then I get back into it again. I don't know that we'll be doing any chickens this year. I think we're going to take a year off from the chickens. We still actually have some from last year. We didn't go through them as quickly as we usually do. But that's not your question. So hang on. Well, there's a couple of things, honestly. I don't do too much. I try not to just go crazy with it. I've got the rabbits, I've got the quail. Those are pretty easy. So, the burnout factor is not really that high on that because I'm not really doing that much with them anyway. They're pretty easy to take care of. The things, I mean, lots of prayer, I think. Probably just somewhat my personality. I just tend to be kind of laid back, easy going. So I don't really get too burned out on things. I don't know if that answers the question. I don't know if I have any great advice on how to keep from getting burned out. I know it can be an issue sometimes. And I get, I go through phases on just about everything. I get super enthusiastic about something. I'll be super excited about it for a while. And then I just kind of get to where it's like, not that exciting anymore. And I don't want to do it. But I don't know. I'm right now I'm kind of struggling with trying to get myself motivated to clean the garden out, get it ready. I've just been kind of lazy lately, so I do need to kind of work around that, I guess. But I just kind of rambled there for a little bit. I don't really know how to answer that question. If I figure out a good way to do it, I'll let you know. Let's see what else we got here. Vernon wants to know, did you find out what happened to your rabbit? No, actually, I haven't figured it out yet. My best guess is some kid or something was coming back there just to check things out. I really don't know. Haven't had any issues in about a week and a half, so I'm guessing it's done. Don't know. That reminds me, did my dog come back in or did I don't know if he did or not. So let me see. Max. I don't hear him moving around. I'm just going to hope he came back in, or if not, if somebody opened the gate again and let him out, well, then I'm sure he won't go anywhere. Oh, there he is right there. You did come back in, didn't you? There he is. There's a buddy. All right, Jessica Fernandez says, I love the homestead life, but I have a hard time when it comes to processing days. Yeah, those are always the hardest for sure. Nothing fun about processing, and it really shouldn't be fun. It should be one of those things that, is a little bit, take seriously, you're not, it's not an exciting thing to do. It's tough. I don't do a full homestead life, so it's not, I can't speak to it exactly like, what you're dealing with. I've always said that I think so many people think they want to live like on a homestead and do the actual homesteading, but they have no idea how much work that is. It's incredible. It's easier to actually just go work a job, than it is to try to provide for yourself and live on a homestead and do all the stuff that's required. But yeah, it's tough. I don't know how to tell you how to keep you, help you keep from getting burned out. It has to be something that you really are passionate about. That's the only things I can say is just, keep at it, work through the down points, and you'll get through it. And Verna says that's a challenge we all deal with. Just have to keep your eye upon the goal and thank the animals for giving their lives to enrich your family's life. Yeah, see, I don't thank the animals. I know it seems weird to me to thank the animals, but I do thank God for that. I thank God for every time I do process that he's provided for me in that way. But it is a weird thing to me to thank the animals. It just seems odd, but I don't know. But then again, here I am talking to my dog like he's a person. Where you at? Max, what are you doing? Get out of there. Come here. I don't know what he's after. All right. Where we at here? Warren's Life says, hello from southeastern PA, looking to get started with quail this year. I have honeybees, and I want to get started growing my own food. Well, it sounds like if you got honeybees, you're producing honey, right? That's pretty good. So you could probably trade that for quite a bit of stuff. Honestly, I haven't been eating a lot of rabbit lately because I've been selling them, but selling them at like $30 a piece. I can go buy steak for that price. It's a trade-off, but it's producing food for me just indirectly. So you might think of it that way too, but I'm not telling you not to get started with quail. That's a great thing to start with. You can get a lot of production out of quail. It's not terribly difficult to do, and you're in the right place because if you have questions, we're here to answer them. Not just me, everybody in this chat here, I'm sure can answer questions for you just as well, probably better than I can in a lot of cases. Yeah, if you have questions about getting started, let us know. We'll do our best to help you out along the way. I'd love to get some of that honey. I love homegrown honey or local honey. Let's put it that way, not homegrown. I have not dove into bees yet, beekeeping. That's one of the things thought about from time to time, just haven't done it. Joy's here, says hello from Western Oregon. Better late than never, LOL. Yeah. Oh, you know the deal. We don't keep attendance. We wouldn't have even known you were late. It's all good. Katrina says, this is year 7 for my garden, so give it a year rest. Taking advantage of it to start quail. Will miss digging in the dirt and the fresh food. Yep, I know exactly what you mean. But, the last 2 years in the garden were tough. Blight issues with the tomatoes. It just didn't produce as well. I may need to think about taking a year off too. Just let the garden rest, throw some amendments on it, and just let it be for a little while. I don't know yet what we're going to do. Verna says, quail is the introduction animals to self-sufficiency, followed by rabbits. Yeah, pretty close to that. I don't know. Rabbits might be for some people. Quail might be for other people. They're both pretty close to that. Mike says, what are some online quail breeders that you trust? I want California Valley quail, and they are hard to find locally. Yeah, well, they're going to be hard to find probably because they're they're a native bird. So I don't know if they require a permit everywhere, but I believe they require a permit to be able to raise. It's kind of like bobwhites. Because they're a native bird, they require a permit for you to be able to raise them. Now, it's not a terribly hard permit to get, but because it requires a permit, there's not a huge market for it. So therefore, like, breeders can't sell to somebody that doesn't have a permit. Now, I may be wrong on that, but I believe that that's the case with California quail as well, because they're a native bird of the United States and protected under the Federal Migratory Bird Act or whatever it is. You're going to have to look this up. I may be wrong, but I think pretty much every bird, every native bird is protected under that. The only ones I know, not really what I would consider native birds, and that's why they're not on that, starlings and European sparrows. But other than that, pretty much every other bird is covered under that. And I think you would need a permit to be able to raise them. So I don't know anybody that I can tell you that would have those. Verna's posted a link to My Shire Farm. That's a great supplier for Coturnix quail. I trust them, immensely. Good friend of mine, and fantastic bloodlines. Good, you're going to have good results with them. But as far as California Valley quail, I don't know anybody that's producing them right offhand. Somebody else may be able to speak to that, but I'm not sure. Jimbo says, so ready to not have to keep breaking ice in these water bowls. Spring can't come fast enough. Yeah, I know what you mean. That's always the worst part of winter. Actually, is keeping the ice out of the water bowls. If you're talking about ice in the water bowls for quail, I got a heated water, and man, it works fantastic. But for the rabbits, they would chew on the cords and stuff, so I don't even bother. I just knock the ice out of it. We've actually had about a week where I haven't had to, so that's pretty nice, actually. Let's see what we got here. Keone, I think it is, says, rabbit manure is awesome for the garden. We had our best year for tomatoes and peppers last year as a result. Well, that is great to hear. That's great to hear. Yeah, rabbit manure is fantastic fertilizer. So I'm glad to hear that you had a great year on that. Verna says, California Valley quail, try someone in Tennessee. That's a possibility. Again, look into the regulations. I may be completely wrong on that. I know bobwhite in Missouri, I would have to have a permit to raise them. And I thought that was nationwide, but it may just be where those, like in the states where those birds are native. I may be wrong. I don't really know. Jessica says, thanks, Mike. What did Mike do? Who's Mike? Mike who? Mike, there we go. No, Mike, I missed a comment or something? He says, thanks, Mike, you're right. It's so much harder than working a 9 to 5 in some ways. God does provide, and it is amazing to be able to harvest what he has provided us. Indeed, it is. I don't know if I missed a comment. I'm not sure where Mike said that, but I agree. I think I said the same thing, actually, that it's so much harder than working a regular job. Verna says 5.5 weeks to go. Oh, for spring, I think is what you're saying. Yeah, 5.5 weeks, roughly. Well, we'll see. I mean, I've said this for a while now, but it does seem like our seasons have been shifting a little bit. So, our average last frost date is like April 15th, I think. But it seems like it's been a little bit later the last couple of years. But it also seems like winter's coming a little bit later the last couple of years, too. It seems like everything's just shifted a little bit. So we may have more like 6.5 weeks or 6 weeks. I don't know. Verna says, oh, rabbits love chewing on ice as well. I know, I don't mind chewing on ice, that's for sure. But it is tough whenever you have a water bowl and it freezes solid over there. I mean, there's nothing it's hard for them to chew on that. There's no edges, if that makes sense. Yuri says, I just got eggs from My Shire today, hoping for at least some to hatch. It took 10 days to deliver. Boy, I've heard about some delays with Postal Service lately. You should still get a good hatch rate. And if not, reach out to Zach, talk to him and see what he can do. Jacob says, I'm late, but hello, everyone. Hey, it's all good. Again, we don't keep attendance, so we're just happy you're here. Verna says to Yuri, let them rest overnight before putting them in the incubator. Yeah, that's probably the best bet, actually. I didn't even think about saying that. Buster says, hey to all. Hello to you too. Thanks for joining. Andy Rabbit says, I wanted Bob's, but don't want to do the permit. Yeah, I don't think it's a very hard, at least here, I don't think it's a very hard permit to get, and it's not terribly expensive, but it does require a permit. Katrina says, I put a pumpkin in with my rabbit, freezing cold days, froze it solid, helped save her from chewing on the hutch. She chewed on the pumpkin instead. Well, that's not bad. That would work. Verna says, yeah, but Chris, when you break it out of their bowl, hand them a piece. Well, I could do that, I guess. We could try it and see. Madison says, how many meat quail can I keep in a 5x5 cage? It's kind of a common question today. We've got that one other time is how many birds can you put in, or how many birds should you have per square foot or something like that. So 5x5 is what, 25 square foot, basically. You're saying 5 foot by 5 foot. So it's basically 25 square foot. Conventional wisdom is somewhere around 1 bird per square foot. So you're looking at roughly 25 birds in that cage. But you can do denser than that, especially if you're doing a grow out. Like if you're just growing them out to process them from, catching them and then growing them out. I wouldn't hesitate to put 50 or 60 birds in there, because they're really only going to be crowded for like the last week and a half or so. If you want to pack them dense and just for breeding, you can get up to like 3 per square foot roughly. So that's going to be somewhere around 60-ish birds roughly. But I think that's a little too dense. I probably would go more like maybe 30 in that hutch. If you're going to look for long-term, for breeding, somewhere around in there is what I would do. Let's see. Keone says, what rabbit breeds are you currently keeping? Well, I have 2 silver fox, 2 tamuks. And tamuks are a breed of New Zealand white, which are basically just a New Zealand white, but they've been bred for heat tolerance. Verna says 25 square feet, you can have up to 75 birds. Yeah, I wouldn't go 75 long term. That's just me. I don't like to pack them that dense. Technically, yes, but I think that's a little too much to go long term. Now, like I said, if you're just growing them out for a meat production run or whatever, I mean, heck yeah, you can do more than that even. Mike says, well, I'll try Murray McMurray Hatchery for the California quail, shipped to Oklahoma, and we will see what happens. I think I'm okay out in okay. Yeah, you might be. I really don't know. I mean, as long as you're not selling them, you could probably get away with it either way. I mean, what's the worst it's going to do? Somebody's going to come by and say, do you have a permit for those? And you say, well, I didn't know I needed a permit. They're probably not going to send you to jail. Now, if you're trying to sell those to other people, I definitely look into it first, because that's where you might be getting into trouble if you don't have the permits and you're required. But again, I'm not 100% sure you would need them. I just think you would. Keone says, how many quail for a meal for 2? Generally, when we're eating quail, we like to do about 2 per person with other things. If you're eating like, potatoes or whatever with it, 2 quail is usually pretty good. Verna says to check your local laws. To Mike, check your local laws to be safe. I agree. That's probably always good to do. Desert Homestead says, I'm not building, it's a quail hutch, has been my quote of the day. LOL. Yeah, I remember I've said that, haven't I? Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that is it. You can go as fancy as you want to, but ultimately in the end, the quail don't care. I mean, don't care at all. It's kind of funny to me too, whenever I see, like, I don't know what makes me think of this, but it's kind of along the same lines. I'm gonna grab a drink here. See these commercials for like farmer's dog food or something, and people are like, oh, my dog loves it. I'm like, yeah, but to be fair, your dog eats cat poop and thinks that's delicious. So, I mean, that's not really a sign that it's great food for them, Verna says, let's see. Oh, wait, Jimbo says, shipping birds has been a nightmare with tracking. We started putting air tags on the shipping boxes to keep track of where the birds are. Had some elegant quail that was lost for 10 days with UPS. Oh, that is rough. Not UPS, USPS. I've heard about some delays with USPS lately. I don't know what's causing it exactly, but, hopefully it gets straightened out. Berna says, mine did great with the rule of 3 per square foot. Yeah, I'm not saying you can't do it. It's just a little more packed than I would like to do. That's just my opinion. Jacob says, just emptied 2 of my incubators out of 100 eggs. I had a little over 60 chicks hatch. The bulk of the eggs were not really delayed. Wait, the bulk of the eggs got really delayed in shipping, so I'm sure that didn't help my fertility. Probably not, but a little over 60 out of 100. I mean, that's like 60 some odd percent, probably 65-ish percent hatch rate. That's not terrible, especially if you're talking about eggs getting delayed and all that kind of stuff, and shipped eggs. And I mean, that's not a terrible hatch rate. Warren says PA is 25 plus for 5 for each species you add to your birds, like ringneck, pheasant, or golds. So in PA, wait, the permit is $25 total, $25 base price, and then 5 for each species, 5 additional for each species you add. Okay. Well, that's not terribly high. I'm assuming that's annual. That's not that bad. Yuri says, I have them resting until tomorrow, hoping for at least 50%. I got 90 eggs. Have heard nothing but good about my Shire. Yeah, my Shire is a great supplier. Yeah, you can't go wrong. Really good guy too. I mean, Zach and the whole family. They're just a great family, good people. They're going to treat you right. Katrina says, don't forget to ask yourself how many birds you want to process in a batch. That is good advice. It's great to think that you can have 100 birds at one time, but do you really want to process 100 birds at one time? I've done it, but it's not something I want to do all the time. Of course, nothing says you have to process them all at one time either. You could do half one week and wait a week and do another half. Guidro's Family Farm says, hey, friends, good to see you. Thank you for joining us tonight. There's another good quality quail egg supplier there. Let's see. Andy Rabbit says, shipping got a little slower after Christmas, that's for sure. Yeah, I guess it did. I don't know why exactly. Who knows? Andy Rabbit says, my Shire has good birds. I agree, they do. Warren's Life says, yes again. I don't know what that's in reference to, but maybe something we were talking about a minute ago. Mike says, you guys got me nervous now. I'm checking permit laws now. Well, I don't mean to make you nervous, but better to be safe than sorry. Like I said, if you're looking at just raising a handful of them in your backyard, you could probably get away with it without a permit, but probably, I don't. If you're trying to sell them, though, you definitely need to make sure that you have the permits in place and stuff like that. That's where they'll get you. Jacob says, if I'm processing 100 birds at a time, I'm bribing people to come help. Yep, I know what you mean. Madison says, what's the best time of year to hatch out quail for meat? Well, I mean, it depends on how you want to. I mean, you can do it all year long if you want to. Me personally, I don't like to hatch in the wintertime much because it's just such a pain to brood them. I like the summer because, and usually, I mean, I wait till after spring. I wait till summer whenever our daytime or nighttime highs are not getting down below like 60, 70 degrees, like 60s roughly is about as low as I want it. Because then I can move the birds out to the outside hutch at about 2 weeks old. In the wintertime, I got to keep them 3 to 4 weeks in the brooder, and that's just a pain to me. I just don't like doing it. It's such a mess, So I do tend to wait till summertime to do it. But, there's no reason you can't. If you want to hatch them out in the wintertime, go ahead and do it. Jimbo says, Mike B, Ohio is $25 for the permit. That seems to be, I think that's Missouri as well. I think it's $25, and it's not terribly hard to get. But Verna says, I do about a dozen at a time, LOL. Yeah, a dozen's not a bad number. That's okay. I mean, I can do 20-ish at a time. That's not terribly bad either. Much more than about 30 or 40, though, and I'll split them up. I don't want to do all that in one day. I'm getting old. My back starts to hurt and all that. Dawn says, I plan to order my Shire for the April Fool's Day hatch back in January, and he was already 8 to 10 weeks out on Jumbo Wilds. That would have been mid-April if 10 weeks, and I got Gopher Ridge. Yeah, you got to order early because, yeah, anybody's going to be having a hard time keeping up here pretty quick. So if you want birds, you're going to have to order eggs pretty quick, or it's getting that time of year where it's going to be hard to get them for a little while. There's just too much demand. But the problem is that demand's not necessarily consistent all year long, so suppliers can't really bulk up that much because they got to have. Otherwise they get the rest of the year. They can't keep. They got too many eggs. Can't sell them. Jacob says, I see someone made deep fried hard boiled quail eggs on one of the Facebook groups today, and I tried my hand at it, and they are delicious. So did you bread? Is it like a Scotch egg? Like you breaded it and then deep fried it? Like a hard-boiled egg, you bread and then you deep fry. That's a Scotch egg, basically. I've had them before, and they were not as good as I wanted them to be. I didn't have them with quail eggs, though, to be fair. But, they weren't bad. They were just, it just seemed like a lot of work for not really much more return. I like hard-boiled eggs the way they are just fine, and I prefer them actually deviled. But battered and deep fried just seemed like a lot of work for not a whole lot of improvement. But that's just, I don't know, maybe I didn't get a great batch. Mike says, what egg incubator do you use or like? Thanks so much. Okay, right now I'm using the Brincy Ovation. I had to look at it. Brincy Ovation, I don't know what it is. It's the Ovation model, whatever it is. It's not the one that has humidity control on it, but other than that, yeah, it's a great incubator. It's done a great job for me. It was gifted to me, so otherwise I would be still using my little giant styrofoam incubator because I had fantastic results with that and fantastic customer service. If you ever have issues with your incubator, they stand behind their product. I've had that incubator for probably a little over 10 years. I've had two different times where the thermostat went out. I called the company. They don't ask when you bought it, nothing. They just send you a replacement part in the mail. And like 2 days later, I got it. I mean, it's fantastic customer service, and it works. I got great hatch rates out of my little giant. Yuri says, I won 30 eggs from Gopher Ridge on the last Coturnix Corner Live. Well, awesome. Always good to win some free eggs, isn't it? Don says, I got both hatches covered, KC Quail Farm and Gopher Ridge. Nice. Is Kansas City Quail Farm selling eggs again? I thought they stopped doing that for a while. If not, I thought it was a permanent thing, but they may be doing it again. I don't know. Jacob says, yes, I breaded it with Cajun Shore lunch. I used Frank's Red Hot sauce as a binder. That doesn't sound terrible. Don says to Yuri, that's great. He had them on auction on his Facebook page yesterday, but not what I had ordered for April. Oh, Verna's got to go. Good to see you, Verna. Have a good night. Hopefully things are going well for you. And maybe we'll see you next week, hopefully. Oh, I've been talking nonstop for a little while, but looks like the chat is slowing down. Got nothing to respond to for a minute, so grab another sip. Warren's Life says, was leaving the bank and saw a large steel box next door. Was a hotel ice maker, I think. Gonna turn it into an incubator honey warmer. Hey, that's not a bad idea, is it? What are you gonna put in it for the heat source, I wonder? But, you know, that'd kind of be a cool idea. Katrina says, is it better to start with eggs or birds? Boy, that's a tough one. I mean, I get a lot of people asking me that. If you don't have any experience, you've never hatched any birds out or anything like that, it's probably better to start with birds because if you can get them locally, that would be the thing, because shipping birds is not great usually. Not quail anyway. They just don't typically do as well. But that gives you a chance to, you know, have some birds. You can raise them up. You can try your hand at hatching your own eggs. Hatching is not terribly complicated. But your first hatch or two, you might want to just, you know, not have that huge investment of ordering eggs in. And if nothing hatches, you're out the money or something like that. So that's what I suggest. Now, if you feel pretty confident with hatching, you've hatched before, you've got an incubator, all that stuff already, order some eggs. You get a whole lot more and you can get from a good supplier than you would just buying a handful of birds. So, I can't answer that one for you necessarily. I can just give you kind of my advice on it. And I don't know if that helps. Don says, I see a lot of ads on Facebook for Alabama quail. I hear they have good reviews. Is that a supplier, Alabama Quail? I've never heard of them. Is that Alabama Quail Game Bird Hatchery. They sell Snowflake Bob White, Jumbo Coturnix, Northern Bob White. Yeah, okay. Well, yeah, I've never heard of them before. Jimbo says, Don S. just ordered some snowflakes, and they were good quality. Well, there you go. Oh, Warren's going to use light bulbs with an Inkbird temperature controller. That might work. The thing can you even get incandescent light bulbs anymore other than like heat lamps? And I don't think heat lamps is going to work because in an enclosed environment, like what I've noticed in my brooders with the Inkbird temperature controller is if I have the light too close to the brooder, it's just on, off, nonstop because it's just heating up too quick. I got to move it a little ways away to get it to regulate a little bit better. So you may run into the same issue in there. if you could get smaller wattage incandescent bulbs, that might work pretty well. But the thing I would worry about with a heat lamp is you're going to burn it out, going on, off, on, off, on, off all the time. But I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Try it out and see. Who knows? We'll see how it works. There's Chester Hickman. Says, hey, Chris, good evening. Good evening to you, too. Thanks for joining. Let's see. Chester says, my Californians just had babies. I have 12 altogether. Well, that is fantastic to hear. Congratulations. I've got, Warren says, an automotive drop light bulb. There you go. Yeah, I thought those were all LED nowadays, but I may be wrong. That's not a bad idea. Anyway, Chester's 12 altogether. Okay, I've got baby rabbits coming hopefully this next week, just a couple of days. I just threw the nest box in today, so we'll see how she does. Dawn says, I run my heat lamps off the Inkbird. I heat my cages with ceramic heaters / fan, and ceramic coil run off Inkbirds. Yeah, I like the Inkbird temperature controller quite a bit. It's fantastic. It's great to have, but I just run heat lamps on it. And like I said, if I've got it too close to the brooder, it doesn't work real well. You got to find that kind of happy medium where it stays on long enough. It's not just on, off, on, off. Chester says, do I need to increase the doe's feed when the babies are big enough to eat pellets? Yeah. Basically, once she has her babies, just keep her feeder full. Just fill it all the way up. They'll start nibbling on it. You know, as soon as they get out of the nest box, basically, they'll start nibbling on the feed. But also, she needs to extra feed too. She's not going to overeat during that time frame. It's going to be okay. Just fill the feeder up, keep it full until the babies are weaned and off of her. T Fall? I think it is. It says, I've got a few jungle babies. I don't know what that means exactly, but okay. Keone says, wish I could find some Californias here in Tennessee. No luck. Yeah, I know those are going to be tough. I have never seen them for sale, but I haven't really looked because I think that would require a permit. I don't know. I'll look that up and research that stuff later. I won't do it right now. Patty Toas, I always have a hard time with the last name. Can't remember how to pronounce it right. Says, hit the like. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, we got 40 people here, 25 likes. It's not terrible, but could use a few more. All right, what else we got? We got a couple minutes left here. What's our time here? 7 minutes. We got 7 minutes to answer whatever other chat comes through. You guys looking forward to the Super Bowl this weekend? Should be pretty exciting. I don't know how many Chiefs fans we have in here, or if you guys are all haters and buying into the refs being paid off thing or something, but I'm pretty excited for another Chiefs Super Bowl. Mike says, what are your thoughts, or would this work? Having 3 quail coops, 1 pen for just hens, 1 pen for just roosters, with a third pen with 5 to 2 hen ratio to fertilize eggs and breed more. Would that work? Well, I guess that would work, but I'm not sure. Why would you have a pen full of hens and a pen full of roosters? What's the thought there? What are you trying to do with them? If you're just growing them out for like meat processing or something like that, there's no reason to separate them out. You can just leave your hens and your roosters together and grow them out until they're ready to process. But I'm not really sure if I'm understanding correctly why you would want to do that. I mean, there's nothing wrong with your plan. It would work. I'm just not sure what you want. Why do you want non-fertilized eggs? You're saying non-fertilized eggs? And why keep a pen of roosters? You don't need roosters around for the hens to lay. I'm not following. I'm not trying to sound hateful or anything. I don't mean it that way. I'm just not really following what you're trying to do here. It doesn't make sense to me, but help me understand and we can talk more. Seth says, finally caught a live stream. Thank you for all your content you provide. God bless. Well, thank you so much. I'm glad you made the live stream and glad you like the content. Patty says, thank you for all your wisdom and bringing this wonderful community together. Well, thank you very much for the kind comments. I appreciate that. And thank you guys for coming together. That's the good thing about it all. Jacob says, Chiefs are going to win. The refs probably already cashed their checks. I tease, LOL. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Dawn says, I boycotted since 2015 or 16 when they took communist need. Didn't know it was this weekend. Yeah, well, and they're not all teams did that for sure. I agree. There's some crazy stuff that happened, but yeah, boycott if you want to. Jacob says, Mahomes' tone and attitude does kind of rub me the wrong way. I wish he was more respectful. In fact, that's one of the things I kind of like about Mahomes is I always thought he was pretty respectful, pretty good guy. I mean, aside from being a great football player, that he seems like a pretty good, well-rounded guy. I mean, first thing he said in the interview after last week's game, he said, I give all the glory to God. I mean, he just seems like a pretty good guy to me. Mike says, I thought fertilized eggs taste funny. You thought because you tasted them and they tasted funny, or you just thought that they tasted funny, like you heard that they tasted funny? Because I don't think you could tell a difference between a fertilized and a non-fertilized egg. They're pretty much, I don't notice any difference whatsoever. But you don't have to have roosters around either. So I'm not sure why, if you want to keep a hutch full of hens to have unfertilized eggs for whatever reason, you don't necessarily need a hutch of roosters. That's the part that's not necessarily making sense to me, but I may be wrong. Where are we at here? Oh, Madison says, what's the best way to preserve quail eggs and quail meat? Like preserve quail eggs. You could pickle them, I guess. I don't really like pickled eggs, so not my thing. But I've never really looked. They last for quite a while. I have more eggs than I can keep up with eating just off of the, dozen or so birds that I have. They produce roughly a dozen eggs a day, and I don't eat a dozen eggs a day. So I don't worry about preserving them too much. I guess you could freeze them. You would want to crack them, put them in like maybe ice cube trays or something like that. You could freeze them. That would work just fine. But I'm not sure. I'm just not sure I'm not sure how to preserve them other than that, because I've never really looked at it. You could water glass them, I suppose. But again, I've got so many eggs, I just don't worry about trying to preserve them. As far as the quail meat, I freeze it. You could can it, but I don't. I just freeze it. It works well for me. Jacob says the way he tries to flop on purpose to draw penalties is annoying. Yeah, you can't blame him for that, though. Maybe he flops on purpose. I don't know. I've seen one instance where I thought, yeah, okay, maybe that was an intentional thing to try to draw a penalty. But other than that, most of them don't look that way. But yeah, come on. What quarterback's not going to do that? What players are not going to try to do a little bit to gain some winning? Anyway, Don says, "LOL, even Walmart chicken eggs are fertilized." Yeah, probably. Don says, freeze quail eggs in ice cube trays or go buy a freeze dryer. Yep, those are a couple options there. Yuri says, we freeze dry a lot of eggs for camping. There you go. I cannot justify the price of a freeze dryer myself. I've never had anything out of a freeze dryer that I thought was all that great. I know there's a lot of people that just love them. It's kind of the trend right now, but man, they're expensive. Crazy expensive. And I just don't get it. So I guess you could dehydrate them too, but I don't know the first thing about dehydrating eggs. All right, well, it is about time to wrap this one up. So thank you guys for joining me. I guess I'm going to end it here. Should be back next week. I don't have any reason not to be that I know of right now. As long as nothing comes up between now and then, we'll see you guys next week. And again, thanks for joining. As always, God bless.